The Kanto region has a large foreign population, which makes it a comfortable place for foreigners to live and make friends. In addition, Tokyo, the capital of Japan, is home to the headquarters of many major companies, so there are a huge number of job opportunities. In fact, many Japanese people move to Tokyo to attend university or to work for companies there. There are many advantages to living in Tokyo. There are plenty of jobs, transportation is very convenient, and almost everything you need is available. However, there are also some downsides. On the other hand, there are also many advantages to working in rural areas. Recently, more and more people have been leaving Tokyo and choosing to live in regional areas instead. It is also said that it is easier to find a job in rural areas than in Tokyo, and the chances of successfully getting hired or changing jobs are higher. In this video, we will look at the advantages of working in rural area instead of big cities. If you are planning to work in Japan in the future, please use this information as a reference. Now, let's take a closer look at the advantages of working in rural areas. Advantage 1. It's easier to find a job. In fact, you may be able to find a job faster in rural area than in the big cities. In other words, there are more opportunities to come across good job openings in regional areas. This is because many people look for jobs in the Kanto region, which causes talent to concentrate there. As a result, many rural areas are facing labor shortages. Because of this, companies in regional areas are constantly looking for workers. In order to hire good talent, some rural companies even skip the document screening process. Sometimes they interview every applicant. For this reason, the hurdle to receive a job offer can be lower in rural areas than the Kanto region. It is true that there are many jobs in the Kanto region. However, many job postings require applicants to be Japanese or to have native Japanese skills. In addition, both Japanese people and foreigners look for a job in Kanto, which creates strong competitions. As a result, the job offer rate becomes lower. Looking for a job in rural areas, which there are fewer competitors, can be a good strategy. Advantage 2. The cost of living is lower. Compared to the Kanto region, rural areas have a lower cost of living, which makes it easier to save money. Rent, parking fees, and other living expenses are cheaper, so you can significantly reduce your overall living cost. If you work in rural areas, your salary may be slightly lower than in Kanto. However, because living expenses are also lower, your total spending can be reduced. On the other hand, salaries in Kanto may be higher. However, because of the cost of living is high, the amount of money you actually save may not be very different from living in rural areas. In some cases, you may even be able to save money in rural areas. In the Kanto region, the average rent for a one-person apartment is around 100,000 yen per month. in rural areas. However, a similar apartment often costs around 50,000 yen. In addition, eating out and other daily expenses are also higher in Kanto, which can make it difficult to save money. If that's the case, doesn't working in rural area sounds like a better option? Advantage 3. A shorter and easier commute. If you live in rural area, the morning trains are usually much less crowded than in Kanto, and you may even be able to get a seat. Even during rush hour, you may be able to sit during your commute, which allows you to read a book or get some work done. If you commute by car, there's usually much less traffic than in Kanto, so getting to work is much smoother. Because the cost of living is lower, you may also be able to rent a home close to your workplace. In some cases, your commute could be as short as 5 minutes, which means almost no commuting stress. In contrast, commuting by train in the Kanto region often means standing in crowded train for more than an hour. Because there are so many offices in Tokyo, many people who work there actually live in the suburbs or in nearby prefectures. For example, if someone lives in Kanagawa, their commute could take 2 hours one way or 4 hours round trip. Standing in a crowded train for 2 hours can be extremely stressful. If work starts at 9 a.m., you may need to leave home around 6 a.m. Tokyo's rush hour trains are extremely crowded, sometimes so packed that you can hardly move. Commuting for a long period in that kind of environment can even make some people feel sick. If you dislike crowded trains, working in a rural area may be a better option. Advantage 4. People are friendly and welcoming. People living in rural areas are also often said to be friendly and kind. If you are working in Japan for the first time, you might not know the area well and may got lost. However, people in rural areas are often quick to help. Rural areas also have strong local communities. Events such as barbecue and sports festivals are often held. By joining these community events, you can make new friends. Because there are many opportunities to interact, it is easier to make Japanese friends. On the other hand, many people working in Kanto seems very busy and always stressed for time. Of course, not everyone is like that. However, some people feel that it can be harder to build close relationships with Japanese people in big cities. Advantage 5. Your Japanese will improve. Because there are fewer foreigners in rural areas, you naturally have more chances to use Japanese. There are also fewer foreign tourists compared to the Kanto region. As a result, most signs around town are written only in Japanese. In many workplaces, you may even be the only foreign employees, which creates a great environment for learning Japanese. Compared to Kanto, there are fewer foreigners, so you might feel a little lonely at first. However, once you make Japanese friends, you will likely enjoy life in rural areas. In Kanto, there are many foreigners, So it is easy to find someone who speaks your native language when you need help. Because of this, you may end up using Japanese less often. There are also many foreign communities, so you may naturally start speaking your native language more often. As a result, your opportunities to use Japanese may be limited to work or shopping. Compared to rural areas, the chances to use Japanese may decrease significantly. So we have looked at the advantages of working in rural areas. To summarize, there are many benefits to working in rural areas. It is easier to find a job. The cost of living is lower. The commute is shorter and easier. People are friendly and welcoming. Your Japanese will improve. Of course, there are also many advantages to working in Kanto region. Both Kanto and rural areas are still part of Japan. If you have opportunities to work, don't limit yourself by location. Apply actively. When searching for a job, don't limit yourself to Kanto. Broaden your perspective and consider opportunities in rural areas as well. You might discover great opportunities.